As the city works to revitalize downtown East, some homeless shelters are closing, most notably Seaton House, which is Canada's largest men's homeless shelter. And it means close to 600 people will be displaced. Now, this building is on Runnymede, north of Dundas. It's actually an old Goodwill, and it's under construction now as part of the Seaton House rebuild and will eventually house 40 men. There's another location in Scarborough, but the exodus at Seaton House has already begun, and that's leaving some residents feeling vulnerable and worried.
People don't know what's going on. A lot of them are left in the dark. There is a list that's been made up, which none of the residents are privy to, of who's next in line to be sent to the Scarborough location.
The plan to shut down the aging Seaton House located on George Street near Gerrard and Jarvis has been in the works for years. But Jason Marks says they were told they'd be moved next year and now find it frustrating that they're being uprooted early.
They feel like they have absolutely no say in their lives whatsoever.
Jason also tells me residents are getting very little notice when their turn comes to leave, just 12 to 24 hours. Gord Tanner, the director of Homeless Initiatives and Prevention Services for the city, says that would never happen.
None of this would happen with 24 hours notice. You know, there's a long conversation happening with each of the individuals at Seaton House to make sure that, we're finding a long-term plan that works for them.
Tanner says the date to be out of Seaton House has been pushed to 2021 instead of 2020, but admits the transitional process has already begun. It takes time to move that many people.
First and foremost, we want to work with people to get into housing with permanent supports and get out of the emergency shelter system. But in addition to that, we'll be opening 5 other emergency shelters around the city to accommodate the beds that will be decommissioned at Seaton House.
Gord Tanner says the $500 million revitalization on George Street will combine transitional units, long-term beds, and 100 emergency shelter beds. But anti-poverty advocates say shutting down the old facility is a terrible idea.
They should abandon this plan or at least put it on hold for a number of years right now because we have a shelter crisis. You're losing 500 beds in that area. Where are you going to put them?
Héroux says the city should have made more of an effort years ago to make Seaton House more livable. His other point is by moving people to locations like this renovated Comfort Inn on Kingston Road, which houses 100 people, and other places out of the downtown, it's taking away residents' crucial services and leaving them feeling isolated.
You have to understand that, when you're living in a shelter in the area, since I've been there 30 years, there are soup kitchens. So there's a good shepherd if people are hungry.
Yeah.
There's, there was legal clinics. There are drop-ins. There are health centers. People's health care is here. Right. There are doctors.
Meanwhile, Jason Marks doesn't know where he will end up. He says he has enough money for first and last month's rent, but it's nearly impossible to find an affordable apartment.
I do know that as of next week, my particular caseworker and I are just going to try and help me.
Now, the city says that the new facility that will replace the old Seaton House downtown will be done by 2024. And while there will be fewer beds at that new George Street location, Gord Tanner says that will be more than made up by the other smaller shelters that are going to open around the city.